Yo, bro, check this out.
That was an infamous first impression that a friend of mine gave me when he loaded up a save file for a game that I had heard of and was at some point relatively familiar with, or at least I thought I was anyway. See, while I was acutely familiar with Castlevania up to this point, I had played a bunch of them, even beaten a couple. Those being, of course, the original and Super, but this game, I don't know, for some reason I had no idea what this game was. It slipped past me like a shadow in the night.
What?
In a flurry of other PS1 games and other consoles. How appropriate, don't you think? What my good buddy had shown me was something that I still think about all these years later. Would you like to see what that was? What he burned into my memory? What do you suppose it could have been? I'm gonna let that question burn for a little while, but I promise you, I'll get back to it in due time. Gotta build up that anticipation, right? In the meantime, let's focus on something else I had just said. How strange that I would say this game flew under the radar for me. Or really for a bunch of other people, even fans. Castlevania, as a series, while big, was never really a powerhouse franchise. I mean, let's be honest, okay? You can look up total sales figures for the series and see that there have only been a handful that have made it big. But just how big was hitting it big exactly? To be honest, it barely even registers on a grand scale. Numbers tend to not lie, you know? As a series, Castlevania barely breaks the top 10, resting in at number 9 on a Konami exclusive list of franchises. From what I can gather, it looks like the total estimated number of games sold for the entire franchise sits somewhere around 21 to 24 million copies. Not one game, the entire series. Which, honestly, doesn't really sound all that bad. Castlevania, as it was up to this point, had been around for quite some time. It's a series that is going to get brought up if you talk old school NES and even SNES. Hell, we can even add the Genesis game into that. And it's hitting its 40th anniversary, which is crazy. Not many things can last that long, if you even want to consider what Castlevania is in the current modern era. Oh man, though, that new game reveal, am I right? I wonder what else is on the way. So now comes the question, if it barely registers in terms of sales, why is it so damn popular? It's been listed as the 4th best franchise as stated by IGN, or whatever that might be worth to you, just behind giants like Final Fantasy, Zelda, and even Mario. Granted, that was well over a decade ago, so practically ancient by internet standards. The list of accomplishments and accolades is a long and exhaustive one, yet long has it been dormant, only getting featured in other games as of late, or adapted into animated series with mixed results, let's say. It was, and still is, a solid game series, but something happened. Something caused this series to shift from being good and pushed it into being great. Or at the very least, it did with hindsight. So why is it all but dead now? For whatever reason, that greatness that fans of the series have been made aware of is more or less almost all retroactive. Not to say that there aren't old fans who have stayed with the series through thick and thin and have played the games as they were released. Clearly they, potentially even you, oh viewer mine, exist. Those sales figures are proof of that. However, that greatness that it has always had was thrust into the light. Or at least it was supposed to have been with the release of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. In reality, while Symphony did push the series forward onto a widely adopted system, it was still one of those if you know, you know kind of games. I mean, have you seen the going rate for a complete in-case black label PS1 copy? That's not exactly what I would call the cheapest thing. I'll be honest with you, I didn't know. Hell, most people didn't know at the time. And what we didn't know would change not only Castlevania forever moving forward, but it also changed or at the very least added to how people the world over looked at Dracula, both on a visual level and on a bit of a narrative one. So let's dive right into that. How's it going, everyone? My name is Leon, and this is arguably the most important Castlevania outside of the original retrospective.
From this day on, the Belmont clan will hunt the night!
Right, so here's the thing. As far as development goes, it's fairly well documented, both here on YouTube as well as in the trenches of online information searching. So I'm gonna hit you with some real fast details. This game originally was developed as what most people have come to call it, the Bloodletting, which, aside from being a metal as hell name, really amounted to nothing in the long run. Some stuff did make its way out of that canceled project. A few sprites here and there, and honestly, not much else. However, from the ashes of that project came Symphony of the Night. Leading the development as director was Toru Hagihara, the same guy who directed Rondo of Blood. Koji Igarashi, who wore more than just a few hats, as a writer, producer, and assistant director after Toru promoted up to head of his division. Lots of stuff happening behind the scenes, it would seem. They also found Ayami Kojima, who up to this point was just an artist kinda doing her thing. Man, you want to talk about a legendary pull? Her artwork became instantly synonymous with Castlevania moving forward. Being that this game was built for the PlayStation, some new tech and CD quality audio could be used. This was excellent news for the series composer Michiru Yamane. She finally had some room to experiment with, and what she was able to create for this game is some of the most legendary music in the series in its entirety. Really, if I'm being honest, the whole team knocked it out of the park. It's especially impressive considering they pulled from an unlikely source, one that most people consider somewhat of a black sheep in the series. Simon's Quest, you knew it was coming. While that game had you exploring basically a truncated Transylvania countryside, this game would take place entirely in Dracula's castle, a large departure from more or less the entire series up to this point. While they did take cues from Zelda games, specifically Link to the Past, to build around and work into their needs, what they eventually created was way more along the lines of a Metroid title. Thus was born the portmanteau Metroidvania. Something of a shorthand to describe what this type of game is. Whether or not you agree to it, that shorthand has become a de facto term for this style of game. Fun stuff, don't you think? And that's gonna do it for all that dev talk. If you're hungry for more, I'm sure you can find it out there if you really wanted. I, however, want to move on to something that's been more or less in the back of my mind for a little while now. I want to talk about Dracula and the design language that the team came up with for, well, more or less everything Castlevania, and in some cases, even vampires as a whole. Dracula, or Vlad Tepes, was, believe it or not, a real guy. Shocking, I know, right? I think most of us, if not really all of us, already know that. But the legend that formed around him is what kept him alive into the modern age. To which, arguably, his most famous incarnation was penned by Bram Stoker. Dracula, the book, is more or less where all the modern interpretations of this character comes from. His description in the book states him to be a tall, thin man with a white mustache and some pointed ears. This description does vary based on the character describing him in that moment. Sometimes you might find a hook nose or something else along those lines, but this is more or less the base by which he is described. And that's interesting, right? Because if you were to ask just about anyone on the street to describe Dracula, you would more than likely get a description of Bela Lugosi and his depiction of Dracula. You know the one. Slick back hair, white shirt with a suit of some kind, and the classic cape. Not to mention the ghoulish white skin and those hand gestures. You know the ones. Try doing those in front of your dog and have yourself a good laugh, right? But this take on Mr. the Impaler has been and still is more or less the default, right? Everyone, unless of course they're being difficult on purpose, has this locked in as Dracula. There's really no two ways about it. Sure, sometimes you get an oddball rendition of the character, but for the most part, this is kind of it. It's the go-to costume for Halloween, especially when you can't think of anything else. It is the base default. All right, so just take a look at this. It's Dracula, but Castlevania. This is the original Castlevania's Dracula. From the outset, he was meant to be just another take on the Lugosi variation of this character. This holds true for a good long while. Really all the way up to Rondo of Blood, where they changed the overall design of not only Dracula, but the game as a whole. This version is unique. It's fine. It's not great, but it's not what I would call bad either. And really this has to do with the more anime direction that they took this PC Engine game in. It works for Richter, and well, I mean, that's kinda it, you know what I mean? More on the overall design of these characters when we get to them and that game. For now though, the real meat and potatoes is here, Dracula. They broke away from the Lugosi version and made this. It's a look, for sure. Thankfully, though, this design would not really take hold. And to be clear, it's not that it's bad. It's just not what the Lord of Darkness invokes in one's mind, right? Enter Ayami Kojima. Through her and her style, we got what I think is one of the best interpretations of Dracula. Not only is it fairly accurate to the book, what with the ears and the facial hair, although she did give him more of a goatee, which honestly, not a bad look for Drac, I think. But they kept his hair color more or less white. Now, I will say, Dracula here is not what I would call thin. This dude's pretty damn big and wide. But damn, is that a good character design for the Dark Lord? So much so that they only really break away from this about one more time in Portrait of Ruin, where they go back to a more Lugosi style. Now, after my mind dives into the old Universal Monster version of Dracula, this is the one that pops up pretty much right after that. And I would have to hazard a guess that it does for you all as well, right? Really, take that in for just a second. This visual design, Dracula, is becoming more and more ingrained with the general population every day. Say what you will about the Castlevania show on Netflix, but they kept some of that character design in there, and in doing that has helped push this new-ish visual identity for Dracula. We are in real time witnessing a small subsect, and let me be clear, this is a small portion of people that notice or even really care about this, myself included, but it is happening in this group of people. It is a shift in the general culture of what Dracula looks like and what that is in this modern age. And all of that produced by this woman, I can't even really think of another time that an established character had their visual identity changed twice like this. One time makes sense for sure. Take, for example, Frankenstein's monster. It isn't described in the Mary Shelley book as how it appears in the old movies, where he's more or less just a bolted up green giant. No. The creature is all kinds of messed up looking, but much like Lugosi and Dracula, Boris Karloff and his jolly green misunderstood giant is more or less the first thing that people think of when it comes to visualizing that character. I'm sure there are tons of other examples where this happens at least once, but I don't think you can find one where it happens twice. Dracula, however, I don't know, man. I just don't know how this managed to be. He's the exception, I guess, and one that exists not only in games, but well and truly in other forms of media. It's crazy. And what's crazier still is that this visual depiction was designed by a Japanese woman. Someone who up to this point probably had never really thought about Dracula at all. I mean, I don't know, maybe she had, I'm not her. My point is that she made this design to depict a character that had a universally accepted design taken from, by this time, ancient movies that was influenced in some part by an even older book, which was based on a real-life guy who we have paintings of that lived hundreds of years ago. I don't know. To me, this kind of thing is insane. It's one of the coolest aspects of this game, and the visual language that it sets up, I don't think it gets talked about nearly enough. Like, yes, Ayami Kojima should 100% get the recognition for her, frankly, just fantastic artwork. She is a wonderful artist. It's just mind-blowing to me that she created a rock-solid design that has the potential to become a new visual standard for an already established character. Now, is that likely to happen? I don't know. I can't predict the future, but it is a distinct possibility. Moreover, it's just damn cool to see. This is an aspect that I think is more or less getting lost in today's world. Part of what makes old games cool to go back to and not only replay, but also re-examine is this fairly unique take on things. Many of the best titles from this era of gaming, and further back going to the original NES, were made by Japanese people working in Japanese companies. People who had an idea, that creative spark, and filtered it through their own culture and personality. Then those ideas were filtered and reinterpreted for release in a Western market. We don't really get that much anymore. Many projects are made for worldwide release. Sure, every once in a while something comes along that reminds me of this old feeling, but those are pretty few and far between nowadays. For the most part, any big franchise is made to appeal to as many people the world over as possible, which makes things feel, to me anyway, less unique and way more homogenized. Think about it kind of like this. Let's take some strange medieval European folklore, translate that not only into Japanese as a language, but present it in a way that culturally it makes sense to them. They then take this version of that original medieval folklore, build it into its own thing that fits their customs and culture. That new Japanese version of medieval European folklore then gets disassembled again and filtered back into its Western origins by people who are more than likely already aware of Dracula as a concept, as it's been a staple in literature and film for a good long while now. It's no wonder that these games from this time period still stick around as much as they do. It's nothing short of amazing that something like this was not only created, but has managed to stick around and still be influential to this day. It adds to the charm of games from this era, and it's something that I think is sorely missed, at least by myself anyway.
As you can see, this is a PlayStation Black Disc. Cut number 1 contains computer data so please don't play it. But you probably won't listen to me anyway, will you?
Okay, alright, design language and all the cool things that can come from that aside, let's talk some game. There is, strangely, a lot to talk about in this regard. Not only in how this game broke away from the roots leading up to now, which we will be talking more about that a little later on. For now, though, how many different versions of this game do you think exist? For whatever reason, Castlevania has a strange habit of being ported to just about anything and everything that it can. It doesn't happen very often. We're not talking Street Fighter here, alright? But when it does happen, the game gets ported to more things than you would really think. In this case, we have the OG PlayStation release, the classic, the one that everybody looks back on with a fondness. Then there's the Sega Saturn version. This one comes with a few extra bells and whistles, a playable Maria, and an extra area of the castle to explore. It's a nice touch. It does have a few sore spots though. Certain effects aren't anywhere near as good as they are on the PlayStation, and there are other fairly small things that had to be altered to accommodate the game being ported to the Saturn. Let's call those technical hiccups, yeah? Moving on from that, we have the canceled Gamecom version. You know, the Tiger Electronic Gamecom? Game.com? Yeah, that thing. Surprisingly, there were actually a few ports of games that were lined up for this thing. Yes, this is, or was, supposed to be a real system. It would have been terrible in all the best ways. Also, let's not get it confused for the actual Tiger handhelds, of which there was a Symphony of the Night one. It's, well, it's a thing, I guess. You'd be better off not knowing it exists. But I was burdened with this knowledge, and now so too are you. Sorry, not sorry. Group meetings are available for those of you who need the counseling and have played any of these quote-unquote games. Right. Anyway, things kind of stall out here for a while. Sure, there was the greatest hits version of the PlayStation 1 original, but that's not really any different, so, you know. For a good while, things were pretty quiet on the Symphony of the Night front, until the Xbox Live Arcade version came out. This one isn't really all that different from the original release, although some things are missing. Things like cinematics, mostly. But also, the music was compressed. Not by a lot, but if you have an ear for it, then you can definitely hear the difference. All told, it's a solid port. Not bad for one of the first Xbox Live Arcade titles. It's still playable on any Xbox system from the 360 forward, as long as you can get into the digital storefront. There was another version that was released for the PlayStation Portable, the Dracula X Chronicles, which served as a remake of Rondo of Blood. Symphony was an extra unlockable in that game, which is actually super neat. This version brought Maria to the PS1 base game as a playable character. This is super cool, but this version has a few oddities. This port and its version of Maria is completely different from the playable Maria from the Sega Saturn version. She has an entirely new moveset here, and on top of that, they've changed the voice acting. Now, look, I love the original voices. I think most everybody does. It's a classic for a reason.
Dracula, die now and leave this world. You'll never belong here.
Oh, but this world invited me.
This version of the acting and the script is fine. It's fine. It would be like if they updated and replaced the OG voice acting from the original Resident Evil 1. I'm sure that would also be fine, but you can't replace that original cheese, you know?
Die, monster! You don't belong in this world!
What are you doing in this place?
It was not by my hand that I'm once again given flesh. I was called here by humans who wish to pay me tribute.
You killed them with your own hands.
And you steal men's souls! Make them your slaves!
Perhaps the same could be said of all religions.
Your words are as empty as your soul. Mankind ill needs a savior such as you.
What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets. But enough talk. How about you?
You can't kill me.
Also, fun fact, but the original voice actor for Richter is the same guy who voiced original Chris Redfield. Strange, right? Still pretty neat. This updated Symphony of the Night will be the base moving forward with all the ports, for better or for worse. For a long while after the PSP port, we would get nothing until 2018. Castlevania Requiem was released, and while that is the version that I played here, I don't really recommend it. That said, it comes with everything from the Dracula X Chronicles port, new Maria, new voices, and all the other new stuff, which took me by surprise. I wasn't ready for the nose demon or the second fairy familiar that you could find.
And we're back! Hey, sorry to keep you all waiting. You miss me, Al? Yeah, I thought so. Come on, you and me, let's go!
I was honestly a little put off at first, but eventually I warmed up to it, so I don't know, it works. It's perfectly playable, but let me be clear, that is at your own discretion, alright? In 2020, we would get, as of now, the last official port on Android and iOS. The mobile port plays extremely well, actually. It's also based on the Chronicles port, so it has the same, well, everything from that version of the game. I highly recommend making sure you have some kind of controller ready to go. The on-screen buttons are serviceable, but I mean, they don't really feel quite right, at least to me anyway. Gotta get some of that click and clack from those physical buttons. Otherwise, if you gotta play some Symphony on the go and you don't have any other way to do it, I mean, you could do worse. Now, lastly, in terms of unofficial ports, I had heard somewhat recently about a fan project called Symphony of the Night Ultimate. This was made and released by fans of the games. Now, to be clear, it was released a few years ago, but it got an update and one that kind of fixes certain things, if you're a stickler for that kind of deal. This one uses the Sega Saturn version as its base. I won't get too deep into that here, but for those of you that want a more traditional Symphony experience, this might be for you. It even includes the original voices, and you get to play as Saturn Maria, so I don't know, all told, not that bad. Not bad at all. Alright, that's a surprising amount of ports, all of which have their own intricacies, but for the most part, thankfully, they all play about the same. Minus Maria, of course. Speaking of, let's jump into the game. But real quick, just want to take a second, see how y'all are doing. We've reached what I call the mid-vid checkpoint. Wanted to take a bit of time just to check in, see how you're all doing, and, you know, of course do all that stuff that YouTube likes to see. You know the drill by now. Like, comment, sub if you haven't, and check that hype button if you got it. Can't confirm if it really did anything on the last video, but hey, the more data I have, the better, you know? Anyway, I appreciate you all hanging out here for a little bit. I'm going to dive into some of the story aspects moving forward, along with some general gameplay and, you know, stuff like that. If that feels like it's going to spoil anything for you, then feel free to move on to the last segment, yeah? I promise I won't spoil anything you likely don't already know. Okay, you good? I'm good. Let's take on this terrible night. Right, so, Symphony of the Night. Next to the very first Castlevania game, this one might as well be the most important in the series. The NES game started it off, for sure. Without that game, nothing would exist past it, but this one redefined it. What was once a level-by-level, highly tuned, and honestly fairly difficult action platformer was transformed into, and I'm being extremely reductive here, trust, I will expand on this. Sometimes you gotta break things down Barney style for people, you know? A Gothic Metroid game. Yes, I know this game was meant to be more like Link to the Past. I already mentioned that, alright? Keep up. You can't deny that this is more or less exactly like this, just with a Victorian Gothic flair and swords instead of arm cannons. Along with that change in gameplay direction and the art style, this Castlevania really sold itself on the want to have a fairly complex story, for its time anyway. This is by far, up to this point in the series, the most complex the story had ever been. There is a lot of ground to cover in this regard, and there is no better place than to start at the beginning. Symphony of the Night opens up on a pretty cool, for the time, CG cinematic. It's nothing too extreme, just a flyby of the castle centering on the final tower. And oh, did I say this was the beginning? Excuse me, I meant to say that this is the end. The end of what? Why, Rondo of Blood, of course. What game did you think we were talking about here? The opening text shows Final Stage, Bloodlines. If you've played Dracula X on the SNES, or if you were one of like the 10 kids that had a TurboGrafx, PC engine, and the proper Rondo of Blood, this is very unlikely unless you had some sick hookups back in the day, then this should look fairly familiar. At any rate, you take control of Richter on the final approach to the throne room. Now, if you had only played Dracula X, then you would think that this Richter has only a handful of offensive abilities. In Symphony, however, his moveset has been increased by a ton. The backflip is still here, so, you know, that's cool, but you could slide and jump, uppercut, or I guess super jump if you want, and this cool tackling kind of attack. Add to that the item crashes based on whatever sub-weapons and just your whip in general, and Richter is a powerhouse. There's no doubt about that. After you're done playing around, there is a Dracula to fight. Heading into the throne room, you get the legendary back and forth. Or rather, you would if I were playing any version that wasn't based on the Dracula X Chronicles version. Alright, real quick, just as an aside, I chose this version because it was the easiest way to get my hands on not only Symphony of the Night, but also Rondo of Blood for recording. I mean, I could have emulated it, sure, but just damn if I wasn't curious about this particular version of the game. To be clear, I do not recommend this version, like, at all. It's fine, but only just. And like I mentioned, it was the best way to get to the original PC engine version of Rondo of Blood, or at least as close to it as possible. Could I have done the PSP game? Sure. And honestly, that might have been the best call, but I made my choice and this is where we are, so yeah. Moving on. Richter and Dracula have their exchange and the battle starts. It's a little strange to fight the big bad basically right off the rip, but damn if that's not cool. Try not to stress too much here. The fight is fun, but you realistically can't lose. If your health manages to drop to 0, Maria will pop in and save you. She'll refill your health to full, and then you're invincible for the remainder of the battle. Dracula will eventually fall, and the scene turns into a photo, like it was some kind of memory for somebody. Which is strange, because the camera as we understand it today wasn't really a thing back in 1792, but I digress. The game's opening is done, and the text crawl introduces the story to us proper. 4 years pass, Richter is missing, Maria is out looking for him, and Castlevania manifests itself, which is strange, because Dracula was defeated. With no one around to fight the forces of Castlevania, Alucard wakes from his slumber, as somebody needs to stop this before it gets out of hand. Enter Alucard, son of Dracula and friend of Trevor Belmont. Centuries have passed since then, and with Richter missing, it's up to him to try and put a stop to whatever evil is happening. Now, I have a couple thoughts on why Alucard is suddenly the main protagonist of this game and not a Belmont of some description. And while I know that this game came out after this, it does sort of remind me of the Metal Gear Solid 2 character swap. You remember that, right? The tanker section of Metal Gear Solid 2? That was cool, and it served as a pretty solid misdirection. You jumped into that as Solid Snake, just like you remember him being from the original PS1 title, only for that rug to get pulled out from under you, and suddenly you're left with Raiden for the rest of that game, who coincidentally also has silvery blonde hair. Is it exactly the same? No, not really. But it is an interesting coincidence, if not just an active choice made to mirror Symphony of the Night in some way. Either way, it's the way that this game chooses to open, and it's pretty damn cool. Right off the rip, Alucard is strong, like OP as hell. Everything crumbles, or explodes, I guess, before you in one strike. Zombies, wargs, bats, mermen, all of them. If you do this enough, you'll gain a level up. Which is new to Castlevania, actually. So if you skipped over the manual and just jumped into the game, first of all, rookie mistake, you gotta read that manual, man. Not only is it the set dressing, but if you didn't read it, you might not have known leveling was a thing. This would prompt you to hit at least some buttons, I would hope, and in doing that, you will eventually find the character status screen. This screen shows you just about everything. It's ugly as hell and very clunky by today's standards, but it has very beneficial information at the very least. Equipment, items, actual stats, and a whole bunch of other things. Stuff that looks like it would fit in with literally any RPG basically ever, which is cool. But what? You gotta remember, up to this point, every Castlevania before this has been a level-to-level kind of experience. Sure, you could gain certain items and gain levels, kind of. Those levels were more like temporary upgrades to the sub-weapons, and those were centered around how many you could toss really at any given time. Simon's Quest being probably the only lone exception in this regard. Now though, you have a ton to manage. Health, magic, hearts, left hand, right hand weapons and or shields, familiars, and a metric ton of key items. The fact that you have a sword and shield right off the rip is a huge change. Alucard can use a whole bunch of different weapon types, and they all have different attack speeds and properties based on what kind of weapon it is. Some of them even have super cool secret abilities. And all that is super tight. You're not just bound to a whip, you have so many options. Certain equipment will affect your stats. Messing with that can change how much damage you deal, how much damage you take, item drops, and a whole bunch of other things. Again, typical RPG-like stuff, you know? That said, this is stuff that could be all new to anybody who's played Castlevania up to this point. It is, of course, old hat by today, though. Every game in the series after this one has used this game and its systems as a base in one way or another. This game started this transition for the series, and what a powerful change that was. I bring all this up now because how you fight Dracula in the Richter opening affects you here. The better you do, the better your stats will be as Alucard. If you flawlessly take out Dracula, no damage taken, plus a few other aspects, I can't give it all away, you'll have the strongest version of Alucard possible. If you have Maria save you, then you'll end up with the weakest version of Alucard. And should you land somewhere in the middle, then you'll have an average Alucard. Does this matter? In the start, nah, not so much. But the higher stats you have at the start, the more that you're going to be able to snowball them in the late game. Ultimately, though, this is here for the players that care about it, and it adds a sort of soft replay value. If you're the kind of person that likes to max stuff out, then you're going to love this. At any rate, it's an interesting thing to see. There aren't really all that many games that do this kind of thing. If nothing else, it's just an awesome detail and shows that the devs were interested in trying something new for the series. Just, you know, a fun little thing to keep in mind. Right, sorry, went on a bit of a tangent there. Alucard, regardless of how you got him here, will absolutely stomp on everything. You'll likely gain a couple levels in the process. These opening areas are also fairly reminiscent of the original games, up to and including this nice little merman area. That's a fun little detail, yeah? There are a whole bunch of things like this littered throughout the castle. Then there's death.
Alucard, what is your business here?
Death and Alucard have a fairly friendly, I guess, back and forth, you know, considering. Without too much delay, though, Death will rip all of your cool guy gear off you, which, it is a bit of a problem. Gotta build back up to being strong. We sure they didn't just take a page straight out of Metroid, though? Alright, for real, though, the game can now truly start. With no equipment and only your two fists, it's time to start exploring this castle. Try not to fret too much, though. It won't take long for you to get your first set of new gear. Some weapons are straight up just better than others. In terms of raw damage, sure, but also just how fast you can attack with it, the length of the weapon, and a couple other things. Same goes for defense. Some armor has extra stuff crammed into it that might make it a better option than something that just gives a flat boost to damage mitigation. Some are just fashionable. Lots of capes for Alucard to have. Some have cool effects, like being semi-transparent. And at least one other lets you customize it to your heart's content. Do you want to be a baller? Maybe a pixel taller? Got some boots for you then. Lots of stuff to find in nooks and crannies out there. Up to and including stat-boosting items. HP, MP, and heart ups to be specific. The first time these have made their appearance. Very cool. The beginning areas of this castle are just flat out fun to explore, and the music is killer. Everything moves at a good to great pace. The animations you have on display here are unlike anything that you might have seen in a 2D pixel game up till now. Influential to a fault, some of these are still being used as reference to this day. This backwards to forwards run cycle, you can find that in games as recent as Silk Song. Clean as hell, man. Seeing as how all of this game takes place entirely in the castle, you would think that there wouldn't be a whole lot of variety. I mean, realistically, how could there be when you are in a place like a castle? But weirdly enough, there is. Even this early on, you have the alchemical labs, which leads you to the first real fight against Slagra and Gaibon. These guys have been a thing ever since Super Castlevania 4, and, well, they've been kind of on a slow decline in relevance ever since. Not too bad. It's a solid fight to kick things off with. After a while, though, you'll enter the Marble Gallery, and while there are plenty of offshoot paths to take, you will enter eventually the center clock room. And in there, you'll find Maria. Not really a whole lot going on here, just an introduction of sorts.
Wait, are you human? What are you doing here?
I've come to destroy this castle.
Likewise. I'm Maria. And you are?
Alucard.
Well, if you're a better swordsman than a speaker, perhaps I'll see you again. Farewell.
And then it's right back to exploring. Now, I'll be real with you. Eventually, at some point, the path that I took in this video and the path that you might physically play yourself is going to diverge. It's going to differ from everybody else, honestly. There is a critical path, however, the one that the game intends you to take for the most part. You can explore just about anywhere, but eventually all roads will lead you to the end. More to the point, you will encounter the items needed for a proper forward progression. These items and skills will help you further explore the rest of this castle and get you into that all-important next boss fight, which for me happened to be the doppelganger here. Nothing too bad. It's a pretty fun fight in its own right, in my opinion, anyway. Right after that, you can get the Soul of Wolf, which lets you transform into a wolf. Forget petting the dog, you are the dog. The library is likely the next major stop, and it's here that you're going to encounter the Master Librarian.
It's been a long time, old one.
Eh? Why, it's Master Alucard. Come to visit, have we?
They operate as a shop, and you can buy a bunch of stuff. All that gold you've been picking up? Yeah, that wasn't just for points. You can spend that here. Weapons, armor, other accessories, and even special items like spells or maps. You can even look at the monster bestiary and pick up little tutorials on bosses that you've encountered and beaten. Why would you do this? I don't know. Guess you might have to pick one up and find out for yourself. It is important to note that you do not need to buy the spell scrolls. You can, through trial and error, just kind of figure them out on your own. But I will say, a lot of those inputs can be just a bit touchy. So no shame in picking those up if you need a bit of help. I know I did my first few times throughout the game. Definitely make sure to pick up the Jewel of Open. It's really the only way to make proper forward progress at this point. Armed with that very same Jewel of Open, you can enter a few new areas, and one of which will lead us back to Maria.
Alucard, wasn't it? We meet again.
So it seems.
As friendly as ever, I see. It's strange. This castle's different than I remember it.
This castle is a creature of chaos. With each rebirth, it takes a new form.
And here I thought my mind was playing tricks. Well, there's nothing for it. Till we meet again.
A little bit of a lore bomb there. Something that more or less explains how the castle works and why it's familiar, if not maybe a little different every time it appears. Honestly, fun stuff. Entering where Maria left is the chapel, and dear God, do not get hit by these spike balls. They hurt on a level that might as well be described as biblical for this point in the game. Yikes. One of the stranger parts of this area is this little confessional booth. You can sit in either chair, one as the confessor and one more along the lines of a priest. The music here is strange and eerie, and you really only encounter it here. Be careful of who you confess to or hear the confessions of. Not everyone is, let's just say, a good Christian. Not sure what kind of a priest is armed to the teeth like this, but odds are they aren't exactly following that Bible to the best of their ability, you know? Anyway, the bell tower has always been a fun spot to explore and be in. I like it a lot anyway. Not so much the flying monsters. I mean, I could do with less of those. Honestly, though, the vibes are pretty top-notch. Up at the top, you're gonna find the Hippogriff boss. Nothing too tough, for sure. And immediately after it, Maria pops in and asks about Richter. Honestly, this exchange is pretty funny to me. I love how Alucard immediately thinks of the old 8-bit Trevor Belmont. Pretty hilarious.
True. Do you know the name Richter Belmont?
Belmont, of course. Why?
Also, hey, take a look at that painting there. Kind of brutal if you ask me. Cool though, right? Onward through the castle keep. Here you'll find the double jump item, and man, finally. Double jump to me is one of those pivotal power-ups. It's one that I think needs to be in every Metroidvania, and it should be one that you get fairly early, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't know about you, but when it comes to these kinds of games, I find movement and options within that movement to be some of the more fun aspects of the style of game. Honestly, it's why I enjoy the flash shift in Metroid Dread so much. It's my personal favorite ability that you get in that game, and let alone the whole series. It's just so damn fun to use. The double jump is the start to not only a bunch of cool movement tech, but also opens up most of the castle to explore in this game. With a few exceptions. Speaking of, I went back to the clock room and chilled out for a little bit. Every few minutes, this side of the statue will open up, and you can enter what it was blocking off. Going in this one will take you to Orlox's quarters, and if you explore enough in that, you will find the Colosseum, which is an insane thing to have in your castle, especially in what is more or less the middle of it. Don't you worry about Orlox, we'll be getting back to him a little bit later. Exploring the Colosseum, you can find a bunch of areas that have some pretty decent equipment upgrades. Oh, and Richter.
Servants, come forth from the gates of hell!
Your blood. The scent of your blood. You're a Belmont!
Attack! Rid my castle of this pest!
Yeah, he's just chilling in this arena, and he commands the monsters in what he calls his castle. The fight with the Minotaur and Werewolf isn't really all that bad. Pretty easy, really, all things considered.
A Belmont for certain. So he says he's the lord of this castle.
After commenting on what went down, Alucard presses forward and you can get the Form of Mist upgrade. Now you can squeeze into some tight spots, you know, as Mist. Out of all the transformations you can do, this one is, well, it's not that great. Functionally, it serves as a sort of quick key. You're almost never going to float around as a cloud of mist, unless you just kind of want to do that for the hell of it. If you did any kind of exploring earlier, then you will know that there is another door that requires the Jewel of Open in the Marble Gallery. Hitting a switch there opens another route that leads into the underground caverns, accompanied by a smooth blues bass line and a jazz piano that pops in every now and again until you hit that classical toccata sound. It's a solid track and definitely brings that in the caverns or I'm underground kind of sound with a very clear Castlevania twist. Down here, you're going to encounter Scylla. All things considered, it's a pretty decent fight and incredibly optional. You know, unless of course you want that semi-transparent cape, then this fight is very mandatory. Of course, there is a ton more down here to see and explore, you just gotta be aware of the water. Vampires, and I guess even Vampire, can't deal with water. Flowing or otherwise, apparently. Down here, you're gonna encounter the Ferryman, a nice Boatsman of the River Styx reference. Getting the key item here will let you call him over to another spot for more boating adventures. For that to happen, though, you're gonna have to leave and re-enter the caverns, which can be a bit of a pain, but such is the nature of these games, right? Backtracking isn't all that bad, especially when that backtrack pays off. And here, it pays. It pays big time. After another boat ride, you will get the Holy Symbol, which is just a snorkel, and that cracks me up. With this, you can enter water now with no problems, and Alucard sinks like a damn rock. Guess he never really learned how to swim, which, you know, makes sense, right? With the snorkel firmly in hand, you can explore more of the watery depths of the caverns. Even though he can't swim, he is strangely floaty in the water. Getting touched at all sends him flying through the drink. density be damned, I guess. Once you have had your fill down here, there's more castle. Time to head up. Way up. With the double jump, you can now get into the clock tower, complete with Medusa heads and all the gears you can handle. Following this path, you will eventually encounter, strangely not death. The boss of this area is the Karasuman. Strange that death wouldn't be in the clock tower, you know, as per usual. But hey, a boss fight's a boss fight. This guy really isn't all that tough, like at all. Easy peasy, and you should be on to the next. Continuing on this way, you're gonna eventually arrive at what I'm gonna call the final approach. Only it's looking just a touch run down. The stairs are missing, without any way up yet. We can't get to the throne room, so it's back down to the castle. Again, this is kind of old hat by today's standards, but I have to imagine it might have been a bit strange to people back then. You know, unless of course you're already familiar with Metroid and all. I know that Venn diagram is basically a circle today, but back then, this must have been wild to try and figure out on your own. So, with the map in hand, it's up to you to scour the rest of what is grayed out, and then some. Gonna have to turn this whole place upside down to find the things that you're missing. Essentially, what you're looking for is a way to get up those stairs, or the lack of the stairs. So it's time to look. Depending on how thorough you were during your exploration of the library, you might have found another place where the double jump serves you well. This will get you into the deepest parts of that area and where you will find the lesser demon, another boss that's really not much of a boss fight. Over before you even really start. After that is a mist grate, and the last of Alucard's transformations, Soul of Bat. This does exactly what you think it does. It turns you into a bat. Fun little bonus, whatever cape you happen to be wearing directly impacts the bat's wings. Just a nice little graphical touch, you know? Also, check out that tiny little sword. Hilarious. So with the bat, you can fly just about anywhere, assuming of course you have the MP to do that. This opens up the entire rest of the castle, not only for exploration and getting to the final areas, but it immediately pays off for finding a familiar summon. In this case, a fairy. The familiars will level up alongside you. This fairy will heal you, which is nice. Each familiar is going to have its own playstyle, more or less. The fairy, like I said, will heal you, and just about every other familiar that you find will have its own unique way to attack. And for the most part, that's what you're going to get. If you want support in forms of healing, you pick a fairy. If you want to lay down additional DPS in any way, shape, or form, try one of the other familiars. There's plenty of them, trust me. Some might even dish out some bad jokes from time to time.
Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? Wait a minute, huh? You're my master? Not much of a looker, are ya? Well, we can't all be perfect. Off we go! Woo!
All in all, they're a pretty fun thing to have in this game. Totally optional, doesn't really hurt you if you don't use it, but I mean, you might as well, right? They're there for a reason. Alright, small familiar rant aside, at this point after getting the bat ability, I would not be surprised if most people back in the day immediately went back to that final approach. And you totally can. As far as most people knew, it was the only thing really left to do. I mean, think about Castlevania up to this point. It's always been get to the throne room, fight Dracula, right? If you're an explorer type though, you might be inclined to check out a few more spots that you can get into now that you have the bat form. One spot in particular might be calling out to you, the center clock room. I mentioned earlier how one of the side statues can open and close if you just kind of kick it there for a few minutes. And that center hole in that ceiling, well, that can be flown right up into with the bat form. So you might want to go check that out. You're rewarded if you do. The super jump item is there, and that is honestly one hell of an ability to get. It makes getting around that much easier, and you can fire those off in rapid succession. Assuming you went back for the super jump, quite literally nothing is beyond your reach now. It pays to explore, and there are still some things to be found. If you head back to the area that drops you into the underground cavern, you can enter this little offshoot here. Lots of items in there to get, which honestly is nice, but the real meat and potatoes is this. This off-brand save room has a completely optional boss fight in it. Missing this is, however, doing you, the player, a huge disservice. So much additional lore here to uncover. A flashback of Lisa, Alucard's mother, being burned at the stake, and Alucard there to hear her final words. Only, this isn't quite right. It feels off.
No! I won't let this happen!
It's too late. Just stay with me. Hear my last words to you.
Yes, Mother.
Humans. You cannot live with them. You can only hate them, do them harm.
What?
Theirs is such a hard lot. Release them from their pain. Begin with the ones who killed me.
No, it wasn't like this.
Alucard, what's wrong?
My mother never said such a thing.
What do you mean? I am your mother. Do as I say. Release them. Kill them.
No, you are not my mother. What kind of demon are you?
Strong enough to break my spell, I like that.
You deserve worse than death for this, demon.
Then give it to me, little boy. Don't be shy.
The succubus fight is one that's not very complex, but the nature of the fight is terrible. Alucard is a hell of a guy, choosing to fight for humans even though they killed his mother. That's tough stuff, man. So, much like how Dracula is being filtered through the Japanese culture, so too is this idea of a succubus. These didn't really exist in traditional Japanese mythology, not really, anyway. Some legends from the ancient times of Japan do have monsters that seduce men, but they're almost always some kind of half-woman, half-spider thing, or something of that nature. Think kind of like Quelaag from Dark Souls. As far as I know, the first really popular crack at a true, put that in quotations, succubus was Morgan from Darkstalkers. Honestly, pretty solid starting point, I would think. Anyway, they went all in on this idea here, though. I guess somebody had a point to prove with the design they made for the succubus. Just something else to ponder on, you know? Anyway, there are still some spots that require our attention. One of them being very easily missed if you weren't paying attention at all. First, though, make sure to grab that gold ring. I mean, you won it fair and square, right? Also, not much of a description on this thing, and not really any bonus stats or anything. Oh well. Probably just another one of those filler-type items, yeah? Let's move on. So, way earlier, around the time you came down to the underground caverns the first time, you hit a switch in the underground passage, and this skeleton ape with a barrel blows up the bridge that you're standing on. Now, you could make the assumption that this interaction was scripted to an extent, but this notification pops up telling you about another spot in the area. It can be a very blink and you miss it kind of a deal. And I mean, you did just get an item, hit a switch, and then this guy shows up tossing explosives at you. There's a lot happening. And even if you did read this pop-up, you might not register it right away. If you're the explorer type, however, you will eventually come back down here and see this spot, clearly marked by 2 pickups. And what's this? One of those dry Donkey Kongs tossing barrels. You know what to do here, right? Blowing this up leads you to the abandoned pit and catacombs. You won't take more than 3 steps before basically right away fighting a boss down in here. Cerberus, faithful as ever and guarding what is essentially the gates to hell, or at least the darkest parts of the castle. A little deeper in and you can find the Demon Familiar card. And if you equip it and come all the way back up here...
There's a switch. Perhaps I should press it.
You can open this secret door, in what is, I think, the only interaction kinda like this. The demon will talk about the button and then press it for you. You won't miss out on much if you don't do this, though. It's 100% optional, but I mean, it's a cool thing to see. Continuing going deeper down, and you'll enter the catacombs proper. Lot of skeleton monsters down here, and look at them run. Goofy fun. All the way at the bottom, we're talking, you're hitting bedrock. In the furthest back corner, you'll find Legion, or I guess Grand Falloon? I don't know. I love me a good Legion boss fight, though. Not sure why, to be honest. It's almost always the same every time. I guess it's just fun to take out all those minions. Especially if you can work in those spells. Soul Steal does work on these guys, and it's just, man, it's just great every time. So this area is all optional. Everything down here was optional. There really wasn't much to get down here, unless you're looking for that completion percentage, you know? At this point, the map becomes either your best friend or your worst enemy, depending on how you play these games. Trying to track down all the spots you have missed can be one hell of a task. The sheer number of "what am I missing for map completion" posts that I see nearly all the time on Reddit is a testament to this. It also doesn't help that the map is a bit touchy on where you need to be in each square to gain that part of that map. It can be a bit much. Worth it though if you like the walk armor. Speaking of, it's time to clear out the rest of Orlax's section of the castle. With both the bat form and the super jump, you can head up the vertical shaft and fill out the rest of the map. It's time to face down Orlax. Polite and powerful in his own right, but even in his monstrous form, he's nothing compared to Dracula. Orlax fades into nothing. And your prize? Well, a bat form power-up. Echolocation. Not bad. Not bad at all. Also, yeah, each transformation has additional power-ups to find. This deep in the castle, you might have already found more than a few. It's a nice, fun addition to old skills. Kinda helps things feel fresh, you know? With this new power-up, you can head all the way back down to the catacombs and finish out the map down there. I mean, it's gotta have something pretty good, right? Especially if it was hidden behind an optional boss fight and an ability. Ooh. Now, I might be in the minority here, but this kind of thing is what makes a solid Metroidvania for me. I know that backtracking and what that implies can differ based on the person playing, but to me, gaining new powers and heading back to old spots to find secrets and new areas is 100% what these games are all about. And that exploration will serve you well. Heading back to that spot in the catacombs will net you the spike breaker armor. Now, you might say, who cares? And you know what? Solid point. I mean, as far as the game is concerned, there haven't been too many spots where that armor would come in handy. I mean, we just flew through one, and the other is all the way back up in the bell towers. This little side quest is, at this point, perhaps getting to be a bit long in the tooth, and at this point, I have to wonder, most people who were going along this route might have been wondering if the juice was even worth the squeeze. Well, there's only one way to find out for sure. It's time to head up into them bell towers and see what was hidden behind all that back and forth. And it turns out, it's Maria.
Alucard, have you seen Richter?
There is a Belmont here. You are right about that.
I knew it! Where is he?
The one I saw was with the enemy. He called himself the Lord of this castle.
What? That's impossible! You're wrong! I have to go.
After she runs off, you can find a silver ring. No bonus to any stats, and the description of the ring is not all that great. Hold on a second. If you look at the gold and silver ring together, you get the phrase, "where in clock room," or clock tower, depending on the version you're playing. So, if you follow the clues and head back to the central clock room and put these on, this happens. The floor opens and a new small area opens up. This is a neat little area, and once again we find Maria.
Alucard?
That voice. Maria?
I'm sorry. You were right. He is with the enemy.
Richter Belmont, in league with Dracula.
He must be under someone else's control. We can't hurt him, whatever we do.
But he must be stopped.
Yes, but can you? Then for all our sakes, show me that you will.
And she gives you, I hadn't ever played a version of the game where Maria attacks you, so I was super caught off guard by this. It's a pretty neat boss fight, all told. The music is Richter's theme, and Maria really tosses everything that she can at you. Beating her will give you the holy glasses, and minus any other small things you might have left to do, this is where all roads converge onto that critical path. It's time to find Richter. Now, you could have gotten to this point way earlier if you wanted. Right after you get that bat form, actually, you can just fly on up and engage Richter in the throne room. The back and forth Richter and Alucard have does explain, somewhat anyway, Richter's motives.
I've been waiting for you.
Answer me. Why is a Belmont planning to resurrect Count Dracula?
Dracula rises once a century. One chance for each Belmont to shine. And then we're finished. Forgotten. If I bring him back now, the battle can last for eternity.
They aren't good motivations, not at all, but it is a little odd, isn't it? Why would he do this? I mean, the weight of the Belmont clan and the world rests on his shoulders, and he did fight tooth and nail to stop Dracula in Rondo of Blood. I mean, we opened up this game on that flashback, so the motivations don't really line up. Not at all. Richter as a boss does not hold back. Dude comes out swinging. If you just go straight here after getting the bat form, you're gonna be in for a tough time. He can even cast Hydro Storm on you, and that stun locks like nobody's business. Killing Richter does end the game, and you will get the bad ending.
It's over, Belmont.
So, the war between humans and vampires finally ends here. What need for the shepherd when the wolves have all gone, huh? My time. It's over now.
So you made it.
Alucard, where's Richter?
I'm sorry.
Thank you for stopping him. This must have been his fate somehow.
Are your travels over then?
No, not until I learn what brought him here, what made him.
I understand. Heaven guide you, Maria. Farewell.
Goodbye, Alucard. Heaven guide you too.
No duh, right? Like, of course this is gonna be the bad end. But I have to imagine that first-time players of the game did this, and I gotta wonder what they were feeling at this time. Up till now, the Belmonts were the good guys, so to just take them out like that, and then get this ending? Thinking that was it? That was how the game ends? Must have been really, really strange. Remember, all that stuff I was talking about for the past however long? This is all stuff players found out over time, and in an era where the internet was barely a thing and really only a handful of people might have bothered to buy a strategy guide, getting the true ending was nothing short of a Herculean task. Now, in today's day and age, it's expected that there is some other quests after the assumed final boss. But back on release? No way, man. No way. If you took the long way around and you started up another file, maybe, just maybe, you would have found all these little clues and side objectives. I can only imagine the schoolyard rumor mill for this game. All I can say is, thankfully, there's a map. If not for that, you would have, all likelihood, not have bothered to check out every nook and potential cranny this game has to offer. If you did all the stuff that I outlined earlier in this video, then you will have the glasses that Maria gave you. Put those on and enter the fight with Richter. This is the true enemy, that, floating green orb there. Take that out and Shaft.
Damn right.
Yes, Shaft makes his grand reveal.
How inconvenient. But we've only just begun. The Master's ascension is at hand.
Now, who the hell is this guy? If you played Dracula X on the SNES, then you would probably have no clue. If you did somehow manage to play Rondo of Blood, then you already know. Shaft here works for Dracula. In what capacity? Well, right now he's trying to revive him. Otherwise, he's a dark priest, so I don't know, maybe like the ghost priest in the confessional earlier, right? Really, he's just some kind of secondary antagonist. A means to an end, I suppose. And I mean, they had to give some kind of reason to get Dracula back in here, right? So, hey, check this out. Here is where things get really cool. A secondary castle appears in the sky. And one of the coolest things to ever happen in a Castlevania game, we get the inverted castle. This is awesome on your first playthrough. It's like a whole other game just opened up. More secrets, more items, more everything that has made this game, up to this point, a joy to play. Much like how Link to the Past had set a standard for the dual worlds in Zelda games, the inverted castle is the stage for the alternative variations on existing locations in Castlevania. For better or worse. In just about every 2D game moving forward, super cool. All that accumulated knowledge that you've gathered so far is put to the test here. All the secrets, all the bonus areas, everything. If you found it in the original regular castle, then you can find it here. Again, the kind of thing that would cause a ruckus in the schoolyard back in the day. Imagine being that kid that shows this off to your buddies, right? Very cool. Now, for as cool as this is, I'm not going to be going over the inverted castle all that much. A ton of it is exactly the same. That said, the major bosses here are all taken from Castlevania 1 on the NES. Giant Bat, the Creature, Medusa, the Mummy, Death, and of course, Dracula. Like I said way near the beginning, this game takes from Simon's Quest in that you are collecting parts of Dracula. After each major boss, you're going to collect a part of him. Don't fret though, there are way more bosses than the ones that I listed here, but I can't give all of that away. You're going to want to explore this place on your own to some degree. Now, there are some very sore spots that I want to bring up just real quick. For as cool as the inverted castle is, and it is cool, let me be very clear on that point, it has a couple rough spots. One being, it's just the castle again, which is fine and all, but that novelty will wear off pretty fast. The new boss fights, hazards, and monster placements help some, but only just. Really, the biggest problem that I have with this place is the fact that it's upside down. The game is good, it's damn good, one of the best, point blank, period. The level layout for the regular castle is about as good as you could hope for. This does not translate well into being turned upside down though. The base castle was designed in a way that works with Alucard's mobility. Even after you unlock all the movement skills, everything is catered to that. Designed from the ground up to work in tandem with what an average player can do with the moveset provided. It's as close to perfect as you can get. It's why they've been trying to recapture that feeling ever since. The problem is when you take all that perfectly crafted space and then invert it. When you do that, it's no longer perfect. Have you ever seen those artist memes, the ones where somebody's drawing digitally and then, everything looks great on screen only for it to turn into a horrific monstrosity when they flip the canvas? It's that. The inverted castle is exactly that. Everything works well and is so damn smooth. It's fun to play and navigate through, and then you muck it all up by flipping it upside down like this. Some aspects of it still work. Some hallways are just as fun to get through, and some are nightmares. The clock tower area was maybe a bit annoying because of all the flying Medusa heads, but flip that upside down like this and it becomes one of the worst spots. Now, to be fair, this next clip here is a me problem, and it specifically happened in this playthrough, but I managed to get stuck in this spot. Somehow, I managed to slip through a magic pixel or something and got caught in this space. I can't hold it against the game. In all my time playing this, I had never had this happen before. So this isn't the norm or the standard that's set here, just something kind of funny that happened to me because of the exact area that I was in. Still, my point stands. This inversion is a neat gimmick, and it's fun the first time through, but it just doesn't work as a fun aspect of the game after the initial, oh my god, there's more, that you feel the first time you figure this all out. Again, mad props to the people that work this out on their own. I'd be riding that high for a while. Anyway, if you can move past the traversal becoming more of a pain in the butt and overall just a touch less fun, then you still have a hell of an experience to get through. Now, I did do a bit of grinding at this point, not for levels, but for gear. I noticed more than a few people talking about how they didn't enjoy having to grind for gear in the games starting with Symphony, and I'm right there with you. I don't normally feel the need to do this when I'm playing, unless of course there's some reason to do so. Keeping it to Castlevania, in the duology of Sorrow games, I typically do grind for souls, but that's only because the game kinda sets that expectation. It basically says, here's your Pokedex for souls, now go catch them all. You don't have to, of course, but it at least informs you that that is an option. Short of the hyper-completionists out there, almost no one is going out of their way to complete the item compendium, much less figure out what monster drops what item in relation to that list. A long way to say you don't have to grind in this game. A lot of people seem to feel the need to grind to get certain things, and I get it. That dual Chrysogrim goes so damn hard, it instantly breaks the game wide open. Hell, even having just one turns you into a monster, but you don't need it. You can beat this game with other weapons. If you don't like the grind or you don't feel like it, then you just don't have to do that. There isn't any pressure or anything. These items, these weapons, were meant to be a fun little surprise, not the intended method by which the game expects you to beat it. You can find plenty of powerful weapons and armor by just exploring. Hell, you can regain the armor set you had in the start. You remember? The stuff that lets you mosey on in here like you owned the place? The Alucard set is placed throughout the inverted castle, and that gear is just some of the strongest in the game. No grind required. For my own experimentation, I decided to grind out the dual Chrysogrim. You want to know how long that took me? Like 10 minutes. It would have been less, but I did that thing where you enter and leave the zone too fast to really see what drops, you know? Now I know individual results will vary, right? It is RNG after all, but you gotta give yourself the best possible leg up should you choose to do this. You want to know what my reward was for getting these? The rest of the game might as well not exist. After becoming the mobile murder blender 5000, nothing in this game stood a chance. Just for funsies, I'll show you a few of these boss fights unedited, and you tell me if you think this was fun. Now admittedly, the first few might just be. It's nothing short of hilarious running down a boss like this, shaking them down for their lunch money and all that. But that feeling can only last so long. There comes a point in games like this where you just become too strong. Some people will go out of their way to get to that point, as if that's the whole purpose of the game. I like getting new stuff to play with. I like having strong items too. It's a fun option sometimes, but I don't like having that be the way to play, you know? I like having that feeling of being a bit underpowered, rising up to win the day over what could be insurmountable odds. The Chrysogrim and people's perceived need for it erases that underdog feeling. No shade if that's how you like to play, I'm just bringing up my viewpoint on this stuff. The last major boss you face is death down in the underground caverns.
So you've made it this far. In the name of your father, cease this foolishness.
Not while there is breath in my body.
Then, for the Master, I'll feast on your soul this night!
The last bit of story we get from him for a long time. I'd comment on the fight, but there really was no fight. Only a hollow victory thanks to the dual Chrysogrim. Once you acquire all the parts of Dracula and go back to the center of the castle again, it opens up and you ascend into the depths of the castle's heart. Entering the center chamber, you confront Shaft.
All hail the son of our master, stronger than the mightiest hunter.
So you are the one called Shaft?
I am he.
You made Belmont lord of the castle. Why?
Because we tire of these hunters and their holy power. If they would but turn on one another.
Then the strongest one among them would eliminate the rest. Belmont.
Yes. So I converted him, brought him here to lure the rest, to force them all to fight and die.
But you never planned for me, and now you failed.
Ha! Your human soul as frail as his was. You'll take his place. I'll tear that soul apart.
The grand plan was for Richter Belmont to take out every other hunter because the Belmont line is the most powerful. Honestly, not a bad plan. Had Alucard not decided to look into matters, it might have even worked. Though the plan failed, Shaft did get a few victories, though I doubt he intended for them. For whatever reason, after this all went down, the Belmonts were unable to wield the Vampire Killer Whip for seemingly hundreds of years. It's why the Morris family had it in their possession. I don't think there really is an official reason given for this in the lore, but there is a ton of fan speculation. One day, maybe we'll get a proper answer, but personally, I like the mystery of it all. Anyway, once again, Shaft is no match for you, and with Shaft dead and gone, Dracula finally makes his appearance.
Father.
Well met, my son. It's been a long time.
Not nearly long enough. I can't allow you to leave here, Father.
Do you still side with humanity? Have you forgotten what they did to your mother?
You think I would forget such a No, but neither do I seek revenge against them.
Enough of your nonsense! Away with your humanity! Stand with me as Prince of all the world!
You will never touch this world again. In Mother's name, I swear it.
Sitting on a throne made of, I don't know actually, himself, I guess? It's a pretty cool design, all things considered. I took my time trying to see everything that Drac would do, and all told, there really wasn't all that much to see. Though I did enjoy the stock squish and cheetah panther screech noises. That was fun to hear. After the fight, Alucard and Dracula have something akin to a heart-to-heart kind of talk.
Go back to the abyss. Trouble the soul of my mother no more.
How could I have lost?
You lost your heart, your soul. You'll never win without them.
How poetic. So, I tragically sacrificed all I held dear in a search for power, did I?
Did you not?
Tell me, what were Lisa's last words?
She said, do not hate humans. If you cannot live with them, then at least do them no harm, for theirs is already a hard lot. She also said that she would love you for eternity.
Lisa, forgive me. Farewell, my son.
Sad that this would be the second to last encounter they would ever share. Sadder still that both this and the last chance they have to talk to each other would be framed around having to kill one another, especially after what Alucard tells Dracula here. Lisa's final words, and they fall on essentially deaf ears. The War of 1999 proves that. And with that, the gang's all here. Castle in the background crumbled away. Alucard drops a truth bomb, and Richter finishes the saying.
It wasn't. But remember, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph
is for good men to do nothing.
Did Alucard and Maria hook up? Who knows, but she did run after him, and Richter seemed to think that it would work out for her. At any rate, this is the best ending for the game. Darkness burned away by the light as the world is free from Dracula, for at least a little while, anyway. So to wrap things up here, what can I say about this game? Is it iconic? Yeah, it is. Did it set a new standard for the series? Also, yeah, very clearly it did. Did it cement a style all its own? Oh, you better believe it did. Was it the right step forward for the series?
What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets.
I'd say so. Every now and then something comes along that kind of sets a bar. Sometimes the bar is low and it's pretty easy to clear.
Stop it! Don't open that door!
Hey, Whisker, where's Chris?
Jill, no. You don't want to go back out there.
Sometimes the bar is near impossible to clear. Symphony of the Night set that bar pretty damn high. There have been games that have cleared it in this genre. Hell, I would argue even in this series, a few have cleared the bar that Symphony had set, but only just. Some people will call it glazing, or whatever the new hot term is when it comes to talking up certain things, but I would challenge that notion with this. Art as we see it gets recognized, and that recognition places it in a certain, place in the world. You cannot like the game, or the art, or whatever it is, but it's held in that standing for a specific reason. Looking at the Mona Lisa in whatever museum it might be featured in, you can either enjoy it for what it is, or you cannot for that exact same reason. But there is a reason for it. There is a reason people have been trying to steal it for hundreds of years. It represents a change in art. It's in the museum for that purpose. When I see that painting, I know what it represents. I think it's an okay painting, huge for its time for sure, and I respect that. Symphony of the Night is much the same. You cannot like Symphony of the Night, and that's fine, but it gets the attention that it does because it marks a change. Have there been better games since? Yeah, absolutely. Just like there have been better paintings since the Mona Lisa, but that does not diminish what Symphony represents. This game that came out all those years ago will continue to be symbolically a turning point for the series and for the genre as much as it is a physical representation of that very change. Change and experimentation is what drives good art, good music, good writing, poems, food. That's a culinary art. And yeah, even games. Symphony represents that change, that chance to try something a bit different. If it didn't work then, we would never have gotten more after this, but it did something. The sales figures were bad, sure, not many people were rushing out to get their hands on the game at launch, but this game has persisted. It lasted a long time, and word of mouth finally got out. It's part of the reason why this game was ported as much as it was, being on so many things, trying to get into the most places it could on as many systems that would entertain the idea. This game had no business being on the old Xbox Live Arcade. In fact, they had to adjust the parameters of what an Xbox Live Arcade title was just to accommodate this port. They shoved it into as many other games as possible as a bonus unlock. They needed to get this title into as many hands as possible. Why? Why do all that? Well, outside of the to make money answer, I have to guess it was because this game needed to be seen. Like a painting in a museum, Konami wanted as many eyes on it as possible. The word had gotten out. It took years and years, but it finally got the recognition. In hindsight, it got that recognition in hindsight. Only when people look back at it did it finally manage to get a word in edgewise. You would be surprised just how well this lines up with that painting analogy. You think I made that up just to sound pretentious? No way, man. Famously, Van Gogh didn't get his art into any kind of museum, much less to any one person, until he had long been dead. He still had his fans, or at least people who liked his work well enough, but that came way later. I would say way past late. The guy would never know just how much impact his art leaves on the world, and that's a bittersweet and kinda sad feeling, don't you think? I would argue Symphony and the dev team dealt with a similar feeling, only it was over a much shorter time span, and luckily they got to see the outcome of that passion on a global scale. Castlevania had its fans up to this point, but Symphony of the Night enjoys the high life now because of all the talk that got generated from the people who knew of it, the ones who played the game at release. It got big from all those schoolyard rumors, all those people who chose to look at it and pass along their experiences. I think this is why I like the series as much as I do. I had always liked it. As a kid, I remember popping in the old cartridges and waltzing up to the castle gate, ready to throw down with the monsters of Castlevania, ready to try and get to Dracula. Things change, life happens, and now looking back at this game, I can see what it wanted to be. I can see what the creators were looking to make. Was it everything they wanted? Maybe. I have to imagine they wanted to make something fun first and foremost, and they succeeded at that. Or at least, I think so. Everything else that came with that might as well have been a happy little accident. But accident or not, they made something truly special. A game that still lives, still finds a way to get to new people. Maybe you've played it before. Maybe you like it. Perhaps you don't. Maybe, through all this ranting and raving, I sparked a fire for you. One that'll drive you to play this game, faults and all. Or I might have driven you away from it. And if that's the case, my bad, man. Didn't mean to ruin anything for you. But hey, you made it this far, so I have to assume you have some skin in the game, right? This is one of the best games on the PlayStation, one of the best on the Sega Saturn, really on any system that it's on. However you choose to engage with it, I can say you're going to be in for a great time. If you let yourself have a great time. The art, the music, the game design, level design, the characters, and the moment-to-moment gameplay are all top-notch. Plus, it lays out a new and surging visual identity not only for Dracula, but vampires as a whole. It's just that influential. Oh, I would be remiss if I didn't really quickly bring up the added content. If you, after beating the game once, type Richter into the name slot, you can play as him. He controls just like he does in the intro section, and he can really fly through the game. There are no cutscenes or anything, it's just you and a castle to blaze through. Same thing for Maria. Type her name in any version of the game using the port of the PSP title and you are good to go. You can do this straight away on the Saturn version, by the by. Just select a portrait and off you go. There are a few other additional modes, but I'll let you figure those out. Good luck. It should go without saying that I recommend this game wholeheartedly, but before I really close the video out for good, you remember a while back when I was talking about how you don't really need to grind for any one weapon if you don't necessarily want to? Yeah. Well, this is why. So, hey, check this out.
Tremble before my true form!
Go back to the abyss. Trouble the soul of my mother no more.
Hey everyone, thanks for hanging with me as I dive headlong into one of the best games ever made. Or, I don't know, at least I think it's one of the best. Maybe you agree? Maybe you don't? I don't know. Either way, you made it to the very end, and I want to take a moment to thank you for that. I told you I'd get to that hey, check this out bit. A nice little bookend to the opening line, don't you think? Also, did you know the shield rod could do that? I didn't. People always want the chrysogram, but they don't realize they have the most OP thing in the game just chilling out in the inventory. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this video. If you want, I have a few others that you might be interested in on screen for you. Until next time, keep it clean out there.